Hi, Stephen from Owner Disown. Sorry for the delay in getting this review out. The new HP Omen X with an overclockable i7-7820HK CPU and a GTX 1080. There are actually 4 configurations available, starting at $1,800 with a GTX 1070. Now my model has a 16 gigabytes of RAM at $2,300, and you can get it all the way up to $2,700 with 32 gigs of RAM and a 4K display. Now the spec sheet says your RAM should be 2,400 MHz, but mine is actually 2,666. At 1.5 inches thick or 4 centimeters, it's not super slim, but it is slimmer than some of its competitors, such as the MSI GT73VR. Now it does have a fairly dense feel to it, much like the Alienware 17R4, and its weight of 9.1 pounds or 4.1 kilos is actually similar too. Now the comparison to the 17-inch Alienware does not stop there. It also has a hinge-forward design to accommodate the rear heatsinks and a rather stealth bomber look to it. The chassis is dark aluminum, and its lid is also made out of aluminum. And it has a rather cool configurable lighting, which I really do like. There is also a very nice light bar at the back. Now one standout feature is its mechanical keyboard. It's got 2.5mm of key travel, and it's a pleasure to type on. And they don't produce that much noise. It's not too loud, and you can feel the actuation very nicely. Here's a comparison on its sound versus 2 other keyboards. One with brown switches, which is quiet, and one with blue, louder switches. So it's quiet. It's a nice little quiet click. Now here is the brown switches on the Velocifier. So they definitely feel more like the blue switches, but not as loud. Like the rear lid, the key lighting can also be configured using the Omen Command Center software. You can have the lighting to either to be static, one color if you so choose, or you can actually pick various animated options such as breathing, ripple, or wave effect. You can also configure the colors you should choose yourself, or you can use presets like Omen Jungle. The speed at which the lighting can also be changed using an adjustable slider. On the left hand side you have 6 program macro keys, which I think is a very nice option to have. The trackpad uses Microsoft Precision drivers, and it works really well. It has separate mouse buttons that are easy to press, and they are quiet to use. The Full HD display on mine is made by Euro, and it is an IPS G-Sync panel with a refresh rate of 120 Hz. Now this is good to see, because typically we have 120 Hz displays using TN technology, which do have the benefit of having faster response times at the expense of poor viewing angles. And indeed, comparing the display against my Sage NP9873, you can see that there is a little bit more motion blur on fast moving objects. Now bear in mind here, on this video I've actually shot it in slow motion to show the difference. I think, to be honest, in real life you need Terminator eyes to see any difference. Now perhaps more noticeable is its low brightness. It's still brighter than the Asus G701VI, but it's definitely not as bright as the QHD display on the Alienware 17R4. Now despite this, it is perfectly fine to use indoors under normal lighting conditions, but outdoors it can look a little bit washed out, but at least it doesn't have a glossy display, so reflections are minimal. Now for an IPS display, I was a little disappointed with its color accuracy. It had 92% of sRGB, 63% of NTSC, and 68% of Adobe RGB. Now in this regard, it is worse than competing TN panels. Backlight bleed, there's a little bit at the top and the bottom, and also a little bit at the side. Port-wise, it generally does have you covered, although personally I would like to see more USB ports. You have one on the left-hand side, along with the headphone and microphone jack. You have another at the back with an HDMI 2.0 mini display port and 3 Thunderbolt 3 ports and an Ethernet jack. On the right hand side you have an SD card reader, a 3rd USB port, and the power connector, which is just actually far back enough so it doesn't interfere with your mouse hand. Now looking underneath, you'll notice there's a transparent window. Now I'm not sure why it's there, to be honest, because it's not lit up and it's very hard to see what's inside. And let's face it, when you're playing games you won't be looking at it like this. So anyway, to the left and right there are large intake mesh grills, and taking the back off is easy. All you have to do is remove a dozen Phillips screws and you're in. You do have a large battery, and I'm surmising it is at least 90 watt hours. And this large battery gives you some good battery life. I'm getting 25% brightness, power saver on, streaming YouTube, I got around about just short of 4 hours 30 minutes, so I think that is pretty sweet. Now you have two M.2 PCI Express slots and you can configure these in RAID 0. Now notice there is a thermal pad underneath these, so that does help to keep them cool. The included Toshiba SSD had decent read speeds of 2.2 gigabytes per second, but its write speeds were particularly low, 330 megabytes per second, which is more like what you'd see for a SATA drive. You have two RAM slots, so the max amount of RAM you can have is 32 gigabytes, and you also have a 2.5-inch hard drive bay and two stereo speakers. Note there's no subwoofer, which that is a shame. The fans are a decent size, but note there are only 4 heat pipes, one of which is shared. Now I believe the left-hand fan is for the GPU and the right fan for the CPU. Now this isn't ideal. We prefer to see separate heat pipes, really, but at least it does have 2 heat sinks per fan. The Omen has Bang and Olufsen speakers, and using their utility you can do multi-streaming, which allows you to listen to different audio sources on different speaker sets. You can apply HP noise cancellation and alter the output volume, treble, bass, and choose presets like music, movie or voice. The speakers themselves are reasonably loud at 81 decibels, but unfortunately they lack a subwoofer, so that does limit its bass. Switching to headphones, the audio was really good. I heard no crackling or hissing. This is what the webcam is like. So, 1080p webcam. This is what it looks like and sounds like. It seems to overexpose a little bit, but still clear. If you choose the model with the i7-7820HK CPU, you can overclock it. Looking at the BIOS, there are no overclocking options, but you can use their command center software. You can increase the multipliers, the cache ratio, and the core voltage. The max CPU clock I managed to get was 4.5 GHz, and that was with an increase of 0.5 volts and a cache ratio of 42. Now I did try using XTU, but the multipliers were grayed out, so I didn't use that, but you could use throttle stop, and I did use that as well. Now in my testing I found that if we only stressed the CPU, it remained cool, especially at stock clocks, averaging at 76 degrees Celsius. Overclocked at 4.5 GHz and no undervolt, its max average was 85 degrees. Note though, doing a long stress test such as a video encode, the temperature gets even hotter, at about in the low 90s, but there was no thermal throttling. However, throw in a game, the CPU climbs to 82 degrees at stock, and this is because of those shared heat pipes. Now this makes overclocking at 4.5 GHz a non-option for gaming, so I reduced it down to 4.1 and applied a 120 millivolt undervolt. And this is my recommended 24/7 setting, and as you can see, it dropped to a max average of 85 degrees. Battlefield 1 saw it actually rise to 93, but there was no throttling. The GTX 1080 was very cool, both at stock and overclocked, 68 degrees. Now there is no direct fan control, it's all automatic, and the only option you have is to use the cooler sense on or off option. The idea behind this is to help alter the fan should it be on your lap. Now at max load, the fans go up to quite a loud 57 decibels, but to be fair, I don't feel that much air coming out, compared to say my MSI GT73 VR I had. It does seem that more air is pushed out at the sides here, so this could be a little issue if it's on your lap. But the hottest temperature I got on the keyboard itself was about 26 degrees Celsius, and that was over the AWSD keys, and I think that is very good. Underneath, it was about 38 to 40 degrees, and to be honest, that's pretty comfortable too. The max load power I've got recorded pulling from the wall was 248 watts, and that was with everything overclocked, and the GPU and the CPU under constant stress. So the 330 power watt supply I think should be sufficient, and I didn't notice any battery drain whatsoever. But in such a load situation, the CPU was only working at 3.4 GHz, despite it being overclocked to 4.1. It's not until I actually close the Heaven game benchmark that the CPU then clocks back up to 4.1. So let's see how it performs against the Alienware 17R4 and the Asus G701VI with the same specs. In Cinebench, it performs right on par with the rest, with a nice multi-threaded score of 954 points. And this is when clocked at 4.5 GHz. At stock, you will see that it performs slightly better than if you choose the i7-7700HQ option. Doing my handbrake test, where I convert a 4 GB file to MP4, we see an exceptional time of 32 minutes 32 seconds when overclocked to 4.5. It smoked the Asus in Alienware, and in Battlefield 1 Ultra settings we get the same stock performance as the Asus G701VI, but once everything is overclocked we see a small gain. 111 FPS is perfect for 120 Hz display. Now on to Doom Ultra settings. The Omen again has the beating of the Asus and matches the Alienware at 161 FPS. Again, another solid performance. Rise of the Tomb Raider DX12 near max settings, we see a comparable performance to the rest of the at stock, but once overclocked it dominates once more. And you know, at this point I think it's a shame that it doesn't have a QHD display. In Witcher 3 we actually see the Omen come back down to earth a little bit, losing out slightly to both the Alienware 17R4 and the previous generation MSI GT73 VR, but still 85 FPS is good at Ultra settings. My final game is Star Wars Battlefront 2, and this is taken from the start of the single player campaign, but as you can see at Ultra settings DX12 you're getting over 150 FPS. So to conclude then, I am very impressed with the Omen X. It offers good performance at very reasonable prices. It looks really good and I loved the mechanical keyboard. It's the best laptop keyboard that I've used, to be honest with you. The screen could be a bit brighter and the cooling system could be a bit more robust, but if you're comfortable doing an undervolt, you will have decent temperatures and good performance. The speakers are okay, reasonably loud, but I do wish they had a subwoofer, but audio via the quality via the headphones was very good. I would give it a score of 87 and I recommend it fully. Thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.